Hello Internet, Seth Skorkowski, and today we'll be discussing the Call of Cthulhu adventure Cold Warning. Written by Scott David Aniolowski and published in 2017 by Goblin Press after a successful Kickstarter campaign. It's set during the 1920s and offers a fun mystery and investigation, interesting moral dilemma, a great backdrop, solid NPCs, a good potential for combat, and some lesser used mythos creatures. It also offers us 3 possible ways to begin the adventure, which is pretty nice. I'm also going to offer a 4th way that keepers might want to use to start the adventure out. Coming in at 30 pages, the module is playable in a single session. However, game masters might want to prepare for 2, just depending on which of the openings they use and how their players actually play. While a solid module, there are a couple areas that I feel could be improved. So what I'm going to do is offer my criticisms and suggestions as a game master who has successfully run this adventure.
Hey, and I'm Jack, the NPC. I'm going to give this one to you from a player's side of things. So grab your scarves and mittens, boys and girls, because you are in for a ride.
But before we continue, I need to warn you that there will be spoilers. A lot of them. So any players in the audience that might want to play this adventure, please stop here, but send your game masters this way. But if you keep going, the surprise will be ruined and then you'll be sad. Okay, keepers, let's dive in. The short plot summary is that Stuart Sutton is an insane follower of Ithaca. He's offered his sister-in-law, Marilyn, to the elder god, who then impregnated her. Marilyn and her husband, Joseph, then went back to Arkham to live out their lives, but their memories of the whole incident were clouded. As the pregnancy progressed with some interesting complications, Joseph began remembering the incident that happened in his dreams. Stuart then killed his brother and took Marilyn back to his hunting lodge in Maine to wait out the rest of her pregnancy in which Ithaca will be reborn.
Of course it's Maine. If Stephen King has taught us anything, it's that everything awful is gonna happen to you in Maine.
The module provides us with 3 possible openings for the investigators. The first is that Marilyn's family is worried about her because she's broken all contact with them. They're going to hire the PCs to find her and just verify that she's okay. The second is that Marilyn's doctor is extremely concerned about these strange symptoms and unusual secretions that have been coming from Marilyn's body. He's worried that she might be patient 0 in some yet unidentified disease or potential outbreak. However, she's now left the state, so the frantic doctor has hired the PCs to go check on her. Those are both very short hooks, but the third is much more thorough, and that's the one that we went with. Dr. Harrod is a local alienist, and he's been treating Joseph Sutton about these nightmares that he's been suffering. His treatment was going fine until Joseph just up and killed himself one day. But he doesn't believe that Joseph was suicidal, and he's hired the PCs to dig a little deeper, especially regarding Joseph's brother Stuart, who Dr. Harrod did not like one bit. One thing that would be fun to do is if Dr. Harrod is the personal psychiatrist to one or more of the player characters. And maybe he's been hearing about all their adventures and all this, and he knows their reputation as people that can get things done. And it's kind of neat if you bring him in maybe 1 or 2 or more games before you actually begin Cold Warning. That way he's sort of a known NPC and the players are not going to expect what's going to happen. He's going to provide the PCs with 2 handouts, a recording of one of Joseph's sessions and Stuart's forwarding address in Maine. However, there is a slight issue with the module's timeline that keepers will need to address. Dr. Harrod tells the PCs that Joseph has been experiencing his nightmares for weeks before he began seeking help from him, beginning in mid-July. However, the incident that started all this was in late July, which means the timeline doesn't work. Your players, being astute investigators, probably will want dates, especially ones that work. So, here's my suggestions. The Suttons visited Stuart in late July when the incident occurred. After several weeks of nightmares, Joseph began his treatment with Dr. Harrod in late August. In late December, maybe after Christmas or maybe early January, Joseph dies in an apparent suicide. The module never states when Joseph died, only that it was recently. But a clue in the Hudson General Store later on will require that Marion have been at the lodge for several weeks before the adventure begins, which is of course in February. Now, depending on your group, it's possible that at this point your PCs might say,
Okay, well this seems pretty cut and dry. So guys, grab your gear, we're going to Maine. Time's a-wasting.
keepers might want to delay their leaving town for a bit. Either Dr. Herod can suggest that the PCs go and talk to the police about Joseph's suicide, or if they just want to leave town, you can say that the train that's leaving from Arkham to Maine maybe doesn't leave until tomorrow, and they have to stick around for a full day. If they investigate town first, they'll get some good information from the police. They also might break in the Suttons' home for any possible clues. When I ran this, I added one small detail in the Suttons' bedroom, and that were the black stains that were on Marion's side of the mattress. This clue lined up with the adventure, but did cause my players to say,
"Holy crap, she's gonna have a freaking demon baby. You're gonna make us kill a demon baby, aren't you? What in the hell is wrong with you?"
My players also researched some of the folklore around the area of Maine where they were going to be heading. A few really good rolls later, and they learned of Wendigo and Algonquin lore of the region. Your players might try something similar, so just be ready in case they do. The next day, providing they have stuck around, they're going to discover that Dr. Herod is dead under some mysterious circumstances, those being that he's frozen solid in his office. Once the PCs recover from such a sight, it's time for them to go to Maine. Starting in Arkham, the journey to Hudson is long, and from there they'll still need to get to the lodge. It's best if they take a train versus the 255-mile drive to Bangor. Either way, they still have to travel by car from Bangor to the lodge. The module requires a lot of drive and luck rolls to be sure that nothing happens along the way, but having them make a drive check and a luck roll every 50 miles seems a bit much. I suggest that to changing it to maybe a drive check for the first 50 miles and then a luck roll for the next 50 and then alternate back and forth or come up with some variant thereof. It still gives a lot of risk and will still require a lot of rolls, but it does allow a chance that the PCs are going to make it up to the adventure in one piece. Once they arrive at Winter Haven Lodge, the snowstorm will come in, making escape futile. Inside, they will meet a great cast of characters.
Wait a second here, guys. Giant remote lodge, cut off from the outside world, colorful cast of characters. Holy crap, we're in a freaking Agatha Christie novel. There are going to be no survivors.
The cast is wonderful, and for me, one of the biggest strengths of this adventure. However, there's a few issues that a game master should consider. Arthur Burgess is a fun character and very interesting. However, he will be found dead on the second day. Game masters will need to be sure to use him very quickly before they lose him. This isn't helped by the fact that he avoids the common area, spending 12 to 14 hours a day in his room, leaving only for meals, which he eats alone, and then going for walks in the woods, which he does alone. But with a little planning, game masters can have him available to pass along what information that they need him to give before his gruesome death. Next is Dominic Strollo, a New York gangster who's laying low. Dominic also spends most of his time hiding out in his room. This leaves only two guests who are going to spend most of their time out where the PCs can interact with them. Rose Strollo, who's Dominic's wild daughter, and Dr. Wentworth. Wentworth is a great NPC. I like to picture him as being played by Sidney Greenstreet. Wentworth is here to relax and get some exercise, but spends most of his time hanging out and goes for the occasional rare stroll around the building. One fun aspect of Dr. Wentworth is when he encounters some horror that's going to drop his sanity by 5 or more, he's going to have a heart attack and the PCs will have to fight in order to save him. This is a very fun idea and I absolutely love it. However, it isn't until the very end that he could come across something that could drop his san by 5 or more. Discovering Marilyn in the guest house or seeing Arthur's smashed corpse will not do it.
In our game, Dr. Wentworth didn't have his heart attack until the big finale, and that's when the Wendigo attacked the lodge. So it was in the middle of this giant combat that he grabs his chest and falls over. But we were so busy and so distracted, with the combat and the birth and Ithaca showing up, that by the time we could slow down in order for us to help him, he was already dead. So while it was neat and all that he had a character just have a heart attack during this really tense moment, it kind of felt like a wasted opportunity.
My suggestion is to have Dr. Wentworth, who's going on one of his walks around the building, maybe see one of the Wendigo out in the woods, sticking its head out from behind a tree, and then he's going to have his heart attack. And maybe the PCs will see him through a window, clutch his chest, and then fall down, and they have to race outside in order to save him. And the players can have a lot of fun role-playing that out as they're trying to keep the good doctor alive. Also, it might give them a good reason to then go and explore the woods to figure out what could have possibly scared this man almost to death, or maybe he'll die. Now, speaking of the woods, there are a lot of great encounters that the PCs might have there. If you don't use Wentworth having a heart attack as a reason for the PCs to enter the woods, I suggest that you find some reason to send them into the woods. For our game, the PCs went to the woods to find Arthur once they realized he was missing. Now, while the PCs are at the lodge, they should hopefully be role-playing it up and searching around for all the hidden clues. There are quite a bit of them. This was a lot of fun for us. However, I should mention that the scale of the lodge map seems a bit much, putting the great room at 200 feet wide.
Now, just for comparison, a football field is only 160 feet wide. I mean, this place is like a log concert hall.
It's a minor point. The larger map actually shows the main hall as being 50 feet, so just disregard that 200-foot scale. However, the larger map doesn't show that the location of the outhouses or the guest cabin. So GMs note where you want to have those in advance. By the way, going to the outhouse at night is a great excuse to use one of those encounters. The only real criticism that I have is that the wooden Machabo mask might be a little too powerful. Now, that's depending on if the PCs even find it at all, which they very well might not. But if they do, the mask gives the wearer the ability to banish Ithaca, but not only that, adds a 50% chance to that roll. For my game, I allowed them to banish Ithaca with the spell, but I removed that plus 50 to their ability to do it. Now, eventually, whenever the GM decides that it's time to do it, Marilyn will go into labor and the big finale will begin. Wendigo will storm the building and Stuart will whisk Marilyn away to a ceremony ring to celebrate the god's birth. This can be a fantastic combat. Now, dismissing a deity requires a full minute to do. For my game, once the PCs reach the circle, if the player character wishing to dismiss Ithaca started the spell immediately, they would be able to do it in time. However, if they chose to fight instead, or maybe fight first, the opportunity was lost. However, I didn't tell them that until after the ceremony was over and Ithaca had made his brief cameo. My players had a lot of fun with this adventure. However, I do have a few issues with it. For one, the players arrived at Winterhaven Lodge with a 99% certainty that Stuart was going to be the villain. And also, it was my fault for adding the black stands on the mattress, but the players arrived at the lodge already pretty sure that Marilyn's baby was going to be something unnatural.
Yeah, there really wasn't that much surprise in this one regarding the villain. I mean, yeah, the Windwalkers showing up, yeah, that was a surprise. But as far as Stuart being the bad guy, no surprise at all. I mean, the only reason that this game took as long as it did before we made our move is we decided that we were going to rule out who may or may not be in on it with them.
Suspecting that Stuart was the villain was really due to the opening that we used with Dr. Harrod. With the other two openings, they're very likely not going to suspect him or not suspect him as much. However, I would also like to offer a fourth possible opening hook to get your players started on this adventure.
Hey, let me take care of this one for you. Okay. What if the PCs show up at Winterhaven Lodge having no idea about Joseph or Stuart or Marilyn Sutton at all? Like they are literally here just on vacation. Maybe they just finished another mission, and they're trying to regain some of their sanity, so they go to Winterhaven and they're just having a great time. Or what if they're here because there were some reports of some big hairy creatures that were getting spotted in the woods, and the PCs came here because they're just looking for Bigfoot? And, while they're here, they learn how to snow ski. Maybe they get some hunting out of the way, get to know the NPCs, get some drinking done. And the only rule that Winterhaven gives on them is, hey, whatever you do, don't go near that guest cabin. But then, the storm blows in and people start dying and all this weird stuff starts going on. And the PCs realize, holy crap, I'm not on a vacation at all. I'm in a fight for my life. And then they start thinking, I wonder what they're hiding in that guest cabin.
I love this setup idea. In fact, I'd even go as far as to suggest that maybe you add even more guests at the lodge for it. Not many, but enough that'll hang out in the common room for the PCs to talk to and get to know, and then they can start going missing, one after another. So maybe 5 new NPCs is what I would add if you do the vacation opening. This setup would completely change the mood of the game and take the PC's initial suspicion off of Stuart Sutton, and they might not even know about Marilyn at all until they start asking, hey, what's going on with that guest house? And they start hearing all the rumors about it, and then the horror and the mystery is going to slowly reveal itself.
Yeah, and add to that Agatha Christie flair that I was talking about earlier.
Now, I haven't played it this way, so maybe it wouldn't work as well as I imagine it working, but it's some food for thought. Now, if anyone does try it with the vacation opening, let me know how it goes, because I'm actually very interested. Regardless, we found Cold Warning to be a very fun adventure. While it hasn't officially been released yet, I've been told that it's going to be coming before the end of 2017. Link to the bottom for the Golden Goblin website. I suggest that you give it a look.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give us a like. If you want to see some more of our reviews and other videos, just hit that subscribe button. Until next time, gamers, stay warm. Stay warm? I prefer Stay Frosty myself. You know, like in Aliens, Stay Frosty Marines. God, I love that movie.